Welcome back to the Aftermatch. Come for the rugby, stay for the Aftermatch with Kirsten Beav, the official podcast. I think we're up to 21 now, Beav.
Yeah, well,
21 and 0.
We're throwing some an O.
Well, we're still not out. we're still here.
We're throwing bonuses in willy-nilly at the moment, so it's been great and great to see the subscriber list improving and increasing, which is helps us no end.
The mission to get to world number one, because that's what we're basically calling it now. We're in a competitive race against the French and South Africa, and maybe you could throw Ireland in there as well. But
Absolutely.
The first tick is in the box.
Yeah.
After test one.
Yeah, I wonder if Razor's running a similar theme in the inner sanctum.
You reckon he's got little bankables?
Yeah, the road to number one, maybe. I don't know. Razor, if you haven't themed it yet, maybe there's a good idea for you. But yeah, absolutely. Got the job done. Plenty, as they say in the business, plenty of work-ons. But by and large, I reckon as a first test goes, A, they should be happy. And B, I think as a rugby fan, I'm quite, I guess, happy and a little bit excited.
So you gave us your takeaways a couple of days ago. Give us your positives, because people were quite nervous after that All Blacks performance. A lot of media and commentary has been saying it's exactly the same as last year against England. A real shaky performance first up, which is usually the case. Don't forget, they did get a win. It was shaky, but it was a victory all in all. But give us some positives. What are the things? You looked at Super Rugby this year and you gave us so many reasons to be positive. Give us some reasons to be positive about that All Blacks performance.
Well, without running a cliche forum at you, the intent. I hear what people are saying, similar to scratchy win against England. Yep, but tell me, how did that scratchy win against England happen last year? It was slow, it was ponderous, it was box kick after box kick. I thought it was ponderous. Ponderous
That's a wonderful word.
It's a slow word. I've got my thesaurus just under my seat here. But no, why I was excited by it is there was intent. There was intent on turnover ball. There was intent on counter-attack. So often last year we would return a ball on a counter-attack, but then almost set up for that next phase of kicking. The great thing I saw on Saturday night from Dunedin was, be it Mackenzie, Ioane or Will Jordan would have a crack on counter, and then Cam Roigard was getting there quickly and we were shifting quickly. And because there's very few chances in rugby now to have a crack at a defensive line which isn't set perfectly like they've trained all week. And that first ruck of counter-attack is one, and obviously turnover ball is another. So I loved the way that they had a mindset of going after that counter-attack ball, the intent to play quick, because when we did play quick, we did prove to be a little bit tough for the French to handle at times, whether we were playing quickly through the middle or whether they were taking strategy-induced injury breaks. So there's times there where I think it was really showing it was working. And the other thing that I really got excited about from an intent point of view is we were having a real crack first phase. We weren't just sending up a 12 to then have another ruck to then possibly kick or to then just get into, I guess, what you'd call our structures. They were trying to break the line of first phase, whether it would be short lineouts and Lio-Willie out in the midfield off Bodie, or whether it was Rico and Bodie swinging around from a Geordie Barrett direct carry, flick out the back, whether it was off lineouts that we were driving inside their 22 and then having a real lick with Mackenzie running out balls. We had a crack on first phase, and for so long last year it was a frustration because it looked like we were just setting up things to set up things, set up for a kick or set up for our structure.
It looked clunky last year.
It looked clunky. So, yep, I know the scoreline hasn't made New Zealanders at ease just yet.
Yep.
I think the intent, the attitude, there's a difference. For me, there's a difference. After England last year, it was like, oh, geez, what are we going to play like? But this year, I see a bit of what we're about. It's not to say that there's not huge rooms for improvement. I think where they'd want to improve, as I talked about the counter-attack and the turnover ball, I think in general that area they would want to improve again on, particularly the turnovers. But I'm talking about the ones we win.
Yeah, right.
A couple of times we won turnovers and it was all a bit sort of slow and what are we going to do here? Where with what we've got, we've talked about how the defensive line's at its weakest when you get turnover ball. Go quick and that'll come. And, some people can say turnover ball is off-the-cuff attack. It is off-the-cuff attack. But when you get sharp at it, which these guys, when you think about the backs involved, the ball-playing loosies that we've got, turnover ball should be we should be the most potent team in the world at that, and I think they'll get there, but that'll be something they'll be looking to build on. And also, we talked about the tempo, maintaining that tempo for that 20-minute spell in that first half, to maintain that throughout the game, because that's where is going to be our point of difference. That's where the French, as I said, were faking injuries. That's where I know South Africa are a different beast these days because they've got 6 forwards to come on in the second half. But if we're going to beat them, it's going to be with an up-tempo game when trying to keep the ball going. So that, and as well as our finishing, I think if we can, bank those 3 tries that we didn't quite get or what have you, I think there's so much things that we can be quietly excited about as All Black fans.
You mentioned Cam Roigard.
Yep.
When I look at that team, I was sitting there thinking, who are the players that have locked in their jersey for the next 2-3 years, like until 2027? Cam Roigard's not going anywhere. That 9 jersey's his.
Absolutely.
I think the same about Geordie Barrett.
Yep.
Who else in that 15 has locked in their jersey?
Oh, I think there's probably plenty.
How many of the team?
Well, you've obviously got Will Jordan.
Locked in the 15 jersey, is he, Beav? Because that is a big question. Did you see the post-match? Kieran Reid said the debate has to start again. Is he a winger? Because clearly he has the same impact whether he's playing in the 14 jersey or the 15 jersey. Does it really matter what jersey he's in at the international level?
No, and then it comes into balancing what are other wingers going to look like. Is Damien McKenzie case too good to ignore as far as a bench man, and all those things, or is Bodie's, like, do you start to think, right, do we get more benefit out of having Bodie and Damien playing at the same time, or having Will Jordan at 15 and then just dealing with the Damien Bodie debate at 10? So,
but do you think there's much difference between Willett on the wing or at fullback?
Probably not. When it's tough. He gets to roam a lot more. He seems to roam more freely when he's on the wing, which is irony.
He seemed to roam everywhere last night in the last, 79 minutes.
But what I'll say about him is something we've talked about with, say, someone like Leonard Brown in the past, about getting a continued run at, say, 15 in the All Black jersey. And what does that look like? Is it the next coming of Christian Cullen? Are we prepared to never know with that? Or do we say, right, you're on the wing, Mackenzie's at 15, Rico's over there, or Caleb's over there, and that's our back 3.
So you've just answered my question. It is not a lock-in what jersey he's in.
No,
I don't think a lot of the team is a lock-in. I think Scott Barrett, Cam Roigard, Geordie Barrett.
I think Tupou Va'ai's there one way or the other.
But where is he?
Yeah,
because now are there questions about where he could be, and you can have the bigger pack, and you can have these 2 massive locks, if you will, with Fabian Holland in there. So now is his jersey number locked in? I don't think so. Cody Taylor's a lock-in for 2. But I think that's only 5 players that have locked in their jersey number, not their position.
The individual.
They're in the team, clearly, but have they locked in their exact number? I don't think we know.
Well, that's what Razor said. He wants people that can play multiple positions.
Okay, well, talk to us about a couple of these people then. Tupou Va'ai.
Yep.
Side of the scrum rather than in the second row at lock.
Well, I was staggered because of how good he was, and obviously he had Semi Penifina, but you would have to say that Tupou Va'ai gets a tick for his performance at 6. He did everything that Tupou Va'ai does, but then, he got some turnover penalties, which you don't often see. He's often a menace at rucks, but you don't often see him with the freedom to do it. I thought it was really fascinating when you talk Tupou Va'ai, just the intent of Lio-Willie and Ardie Savea getting around the corner, leading that defensive line. A couple of times in that first half, it was noticeable. The French didn't really get much going in that close counter stuff because the intent of those two getting around the corner and then bringing the line, you got to appreciate that is no easy job to do. And usually it's a job for one. And this occasion, because often the 6, depending on what sort of mobility of your 6, is the guy that from a set piece might tear around and meet that first carrier, where obviously they designed it that those 2 would, and it was pretty impressive.
So what happens with Christian Lio-Willie then? Because he wasn't a part of the first 33-man squad, remember? He's come in as an extra because there's been so many injuries. He came in for Wallace Satiti or Luke Jacobson?
Or Luke, one of them,
one of the 2. So what happens when Wallace and Luke and these guys are back and fit again?
Well, I was under the impression that the squad is for the French series.
33 for French, 36 for Rugby Championship. So he stays?
I would think so. I mean, from a from a guy who, as you say, 2 weeks ago had the disappointment of waking up probably hungover after the final, realising he's not in the All Blacks because he had to have been believing that he was going to be close, then to be there, then to start, get his Test debut, and you got to say, for a 55-minute effort or whatever it was very impressive.
50-minute effort, which again, the All Blacks haven't used the bench like that in the past. And when I was sitting there watching it, I was thinking, are some of these new players on trial, and that's why he's trying to give them as many minutes as possible. Christian went off after 50 minutes. Super C came on with 30, so he got a significant amount of time. David Havili was on radio a few days ago, and he was asked on Sport Nation, wonderful program on the Drive show there with Guy and Millsy, but he was asked, what was the conversation with Razor? What was the reason why he didn't make the All Blacks? And he said clearly twice in this interview that Razor already knows what I bring. He wants to look at a couple of others. Yep. I don't think you've heard All Blacks come out and say that in the past. So these guys are on trial. As you said, it's a free hit. If they don't do well, they're gone, and they've got these other guys that they know can do well that can come straight back in. It makes me think that Havili's going to be back in the mix for the Rugby Championship. Well,
it's great honesty to hear that. But also, you asked me why was it coincidence that they only had two wingers, and I thought no, because I thought they wanted to have a look at Proctor, Tavatava Nawai and Quintapai all in the setup, and that's how they managed to do it. It doesn't surprise me that that's come out, really.
Really interesting.
It is really interesting. For me, though, I guess it just highlights where they're at. And, you talk about last year, I think it just flows into the fact from last year's, trials and tribulations, they're prepared to have a crack and have a look at things like that.
Quinn, you said 13 plus, and there's no way he is a 13. He is a 12 and a 12 only. He's not a winger, he's not a 13. He got about 8 minutes last night at 13.
Yes, yes. And
you and Razor are just not on the same page at the moment. He's not listening to the potty.
Yeah, I know a lot, and I know these coaches spend a lot of times on their laptops, but
not a wee aftermatch in the background.
No, but they've seen something about thin at 13.
What do you think of Quintapai and some of these newbies that came in? How do you rate them? Fabian Hollands, du Plessis.
I think you've got to look at
Ollie Norris.
Yeah, I think you've got to look at Fabian and Christian Lio-Willie differently because they obviously played the game. I think magnificent debuts. I mean, if you said that's what your debut's going to look like, they'd have taken that straight off. Obviously, Dupes came on. It wasn't really a du Plessis Karufi game. Bit different, but he was busy. He was very busy. Ollie Norris, obviously after his first time out since the final, obviously you can see the benefit of being in camp with the All Blacks because that scrum didn't creak at all. And in fact, they got a scrum penalty, and that would have probably been the question mark over Ollie. Being at that level, we saw in the final the Crusaders scrum get the better of the Chiefs. So seeing him go out there scrum well was great to see. And as I say, Quinn came on and not a couple of nice touches, a couple of nice carries, but again, it wasn't that sort of game, So and he played at 13, which was obviously contrary to what we predicted here.
That's okay though.
Yeah,
we're allowed to make bold predictions. They don't always have to
get off the fence, people. Yeah,
you are the oracle most of the time. I always remember Israel Dag saying, "Win the ear and you win the game." Do we have problems in the ear? We had a few issues last year and a couple of issues last night.
Look, if it's a good kick, then it's always going to be 50-50. From a everyone's got a chance. But yeah, obviously you can improve to be better in the air. But you got to look at what was going on. There was a fair bit of contesting, and so that's rugby now. You can't when Israel Dag's talking about the art of winning the air, we were able to run illegal shields.
Shepherds.
Yeah, you could literally build a hub around your catcher. So he was
protected.
And you were protected. I mean, nothing taken away from the great man in the air, but there are ways to get around that. I do think they were a bit loose on it, meaning we weren't around the ball as well as we probably could have been. Guys were going up and we didn't quite have that guy either right in behind or right there in front. So, again, probably a little bit of a work on. But, no, I mean, individually, what would you say about those guys under the ball? You'd say they're more than competent under the ball when you think Rico, Damien, and Will Jordan. We've seen it for years. Bodie Barrett's often back there. Obviously, Caleb Clark didn't play, but he's phenomenal in the air. So, no, I don't think we've got a problem. I think you're going to get those nights where if the kicks are on the button, it's a contest.
Okay, fair enough. Time now for our Black Magic All Black of the weekend. Proud partner of the program. We're so grateful to have them on board with us as well. We asked you to vote for your All Blacks player of the round. Beav, you've picked yours, and we've randomly generated a winner for our first prize pack.
Yes, and my one was none other than Hurricanes halfback Cam Roigard. I thought he was outstanding. I thought he was threatening all around. I thought his kicking game was as good as I've seen it for a long time. But the Black Magic tackle All Black of the game versus the French, the very first one, who will get a Black Magic prize pack, is handle Instagram Crusade for the jersey.
I'm surprised. You clearly didn't pick that winner. It clearly is randomly generated.
It is randomly generated.
That would have had a big strike if Beav did see your handle.
We do not discriminate here. Neither does Black Magic. Of course, Crusade for the jersey picked Will Jordan, who did have a wonderful night out as well, in Dunedin as his man of the match. So thanks to our great mates at Black Magic Tackle. DM us and we will get that prize pack out to you. And of course, go visit our mates, blackmagictackle.com.
We're going to be doing it every week during internationals as well. We've got lots of prizes to give away. So on Sunday or Monday, we'll ask you for your All Blacks player of the round, and we'll be able to do this again every week. On Cam Roigard, though, I know that he is some player, but he's made the transition between the greatest halfback to have ever played for the All Blacks seem absolutely seamless.
Oh, look, I don't know if you can say seamless. I think
pretty
think,
well.
I think we're always going to miss Aaron Smith, but yes, he is coming along. The wonderful thing, touched on it earlier, is when we were playing with tempo and we were starting to really trouble the French defence, Cam Roigard was getting to rucks and clearing quick. And that just opens up so many things for the team. Obviously, doesn't let the French defence settle when they were going through the middle of them. He was great. He's so big, he offers another carrying option as a loose forward. But in turn, as he gets the rucks and he's passing quickly off the deck, it's going to open up for his running game. And you saw, obviously, on one of the disallowed tries, the intelligence of him. He looked up, he saw two props defending next to each other, and he thought, I'm going to have a piece of this. Drifts across, bang, through both of them untouched. So, no, he is a phenomenal player. And yes, I think come a couple of years' time, there's going to be a Cam Roigard conversation to be as good as anyone.
So test 2.
Yep.
What are they thinking? Because you want to bank the series, don't you?
Yep,
First
absolutely.
and foremost, you want to bank the series. So I don't think they can introduce too many new players. We're going to get you to name your team to take on the French. There will be changes, though. Severis, grade 1 HIA, so that's a 12-day stand down. He won't be back.
Yep.
What do they do there? Do they bring in an Amoni Narua, who again wasn't part of the initial squad, but they're light on wingers? Or do you pull one of those midfielders out to the wing? Like, is this where Tavanawa gets his opportunity? What do you think the coaches are thinking heading into the second test?
Well, a lot like the Aftermatch bold prediction of banking results, I think we're going to bank some time for the combinations here. So I think, like all your big talking points, I think Geordie and Proctor will stay 12 and 13. Bank that, give them another chance to go again. I think that means Rico, even with the injury to Sevuc, has another run on the wing. And then the big, I guess the big conversation is, do you leave Will Jordan on the wing, Damien at 15, or do you put a Caleb Clark? I don't know if he's quite back, or as you said, a Narawa on the wing. I don't think Tavanawa gets a start this one. I think for two reasons. I think, again, obviously the midfield will be banked to go again, and I don't think it's fair to put him starting on the wing for his first test match. So I go Will Jordan in 14.
Okay.
Damien at 15. Bodie stays at 10, obviously Cam. I keep the same loose forward trio, but
Luke Jacobson's back and available.
Luke Jacobson is back.
I believe so.
Okay, well, if this is obviously before team naming, so we will go Luke Jacobson at 6.
Oh, so you are. So you're making a change.
Yeah, because
so how does that change Tupou Va'ai's
involvement? We're considering Tupou Va'ai potentially out.
Shoulder injury, and Scott Barrett has been nursing an injury, and that is why Naitoa Akoi has been in training with the All Blacks as well.
Yes,
as cover. Because they've had a few niggles to their logs.
I've seen one of the great characters floating around training.
So whether or not Tupou and or Scott are available for this one, Paddy would come into the mix, you'd imagine.
Paddy would come in to start with Holland if both them are out.
But in your team, if everyone's available, who's...
Well, Luke Jacobson goes to 6.
So that's the only change. Artie stays at 7.
Artie stays at 7.
Lio-Willie
at 8. And keep the front row the same. I think they deserve to go again, and I guess injuries are going to force that upon us anyway. But I think it's another chance to bank it and get some rhythm, and then maybe Test 3 series locked away at 2-0. Then maybe it's Tupou Va'ai's turn at 12 or something like that. Leonard Brown's probably getting closer and closer as well. So no, I look forward to this team going again.
So just 1 to 15 for us, for those that couldn't keep up with your going all over the show.
Yeah, sorry. Well, we've got
official team naming.
Well, we've got our Newell, Taylor, and De Groot up front. Holland and either Barrett/Va'ai, depending on who's available, / Big Paddy, depending on who's available. Jacobson at 6. Ardy at 7, Lio-Willie at 8, Cam Roygard at 9, Barrett at 10, Rico 11, Jordan Proctor at your midfield, Will Jordan on the right wing, and Damien McKenzie at 15.
Wonderful. Let's get some instant reaction,
Yes.
Beav. Thank you for all of your comments. We have been absolutely slammed in the last week with comments, with DMs, subscriptions and views. We appreciate you all. Keep doing it. Keep subscribing. Keep liking, because it tells us what you actually want to hear as well. And this podcast is for you at the end of the day. Now, where do we go first? I want to read a couple, and I'm assuming they are from our international listeners, as I said to you last week. This one's from Alexander. Been listening from the start, and the Aftermatch has quickly become my favourite podcast. A real can't miss every week. Great insights and stories, but the friendship and mutual respect you have for each other shines through. Keep up the good work from the UK.
Alexander, jeez, we're better actors than I thought. No, great to have you listening from the UK, and great to hear that you're enjoying it.
You haven't put everyone from the UK off, despite calling the British and Irish Lions just England's team. New Zealand Freeski says, keep at it, Beav. Keep annoying those Northern Hemisphere podcasters with the headlines. You made headlines again. Not clickbait, though.
Well,
they took it verbatim.
Oh, I'm not sure if I'm annoying them or doing their job there, New Zealand Freeski. But, look, we don't set out to offend anyone.
This one's from Mark. I enjoyed this. Only took me a couple of months to thaw out from those URC comments. But now the call ahead. This was a great podcast. Greetings from Ireland.
Great to have you listening from Ireland, Mark. And believe me, Mark, I have nothing but respect for the Irish game. I love Ireland in general. And let's not forget, those comments about URC were taken completely out of context, and
clearly the URC is not that bad either, Beav.
Headline baiting from some of your podcasts. But great to have you listening out, Mark. Great to hear you've thought out, and long may it continue, brother.
This one says, a Tupou Va'ai and Proctor midfield wouldn't be fair on France because it would destroy them.
Oh, look,
Test 3.
If it clicked, no doubt. I know, because that's in reference to me saying last week it wouldn't be fair to give those boys their chance with each other. Not because I don't think they're great footballers together, but also just from the fact of the experience in combination.
Instant reaction to your ideal rugby player.
Oh, go on.
Well, this one says the heart surely has to be Ardie Savea. Yeah, you overlooked him.
Who did I give heart to? McKenzie. Yeah, probably you're right. We get a transplant there.
This one from Broderick says, can't really argue with Beav's ideal player, although I'd have Nehe Milner-Skudder for the best footwork.
Ooh.
Flew by this listen, really loved it. It's super insightful as well.
Cheers for that, Brody. And yeah, very well case made there. Nehe Milner-Skudder, feet silly.
How about these two? There's two full ideal rugby players here.
Go on.
This one's from Mo and Co Zane. Kicking game, DC, same.
Yep.
Tackling, JC,
Ooh,
Jerry Collins.
Yes.
Strength of Jonah. Speed of Bowden Barrett, peak. Footwork of Christian Cullen.
Yes.
Leadership of McCaw. The IQ of Sexton.
Brilliant.
And the heart of Tana Umaga.
Well, look, Mo and Kozane, I can't argue with any of those. Obviously, it's opinion-based, but you can't argue.
Your ideal rugby player in the comments below. Just this one. Kick, Johnny Wilkinson. Tackle, JC once again.
Yes.
Strength, Henry Tuolangi.
Yes.
Speed, Jonah Lomu. Footwork, Jason Robinson. Leadership, John Eales. IQ, DuPont. And heart, Buck Shelford.
Oh, Buck, yes. Well, yeah, any man that can carry on playing off what Buck had to endure over his years, and famously against the French too, I think it was, one of his absolute highlights. That is a very fair nomination there, King Rat,
Beav
738.
is blind. Clearly, if you're watching this instead of listening, he's just squinting at his pieces of paper, even though it's on about size 22 font. Lions, the Lions
Yes.
series, it is coming to life. No, they may not always be close games, but it has been so good having midweek fixtures. We've got rugby rolling on after game. 3 matches so far in the series. What have you thought of them, Beav? What have you thought of the way the Lions are playing and the depth and quality of player that they have?
Yeah, that's the thing. The depth and quality. Every time there seems to be an injury, particularly in the back division. Oh, he's out. Oh, we bring in this guy. You know, just.
Are you talking about the Oracle again, Owen Farrell?
Oh no, I'm talking about just in general. Obviously, they had a few injuries during the week leading into the Queensland game, and the name team was a bit different, and just the ability to roll out absolute stars. I love the width that they're playing with. This, for me, is generated by their halfbacks, particularly, and I know they've only played half a game together, but Jamison Gibson-Park, his pass, just incredible. The width that he's generating off his pass, and then the speed of hand of Finn Russell is allowing them to get to those outside channels and play a beautiful brand of footy to watch. They've been so clinical once they've got turnover ball, once they've got down into their opposition's 30, they just relieve of points. And I know they're playing provinces without their Wallabies and what have you, so it's slightly a little bit easier than it would have been. But it's been a very impressive start. They've obviously got the forward power that they're always going to have there for Northern Hemisphere footy. But I'm actually quite excited at the fact that they have literally plugged into Ireland game, which is a ball retention, high tempo, high speed sort of footy, but just with this even elevated level of player.
Here's a stat for you. You just talked about the Wallabies aren't always back in these team. Well, not their full contingents anyway. The stats from the last series in South Africa, Game 1, 56 points difference. This is all in favour of the Lions. Game 2, 54-point difference in favour of the Lions. Game 3, 71-point difference. Game 5, 49-point difference. They gave the teams an absolute hiding, and then they lost the series. In New Zealand, they only beat two of the New Zealand... Oh, they beat... Did 2 New Zealand franchises beat them?
Blues.
Yeah, Blues and Landers were the two that beat them in 2017. In the professional era, I think only 3 club sides have beaten the Lions since 1996. It doesn't happen often, yet the Lions, that doesn't normally translate to the series victory.
No, and look, it's fascinating because we've seen monster scorelines, but there's been, I reckon, enough for Joe Schmidt to just zero in on. Obviously, the teams like the Force and Queensland had very good halves against the Lions, but they couldn't continue it. And that's probably a show of class and the gulf of class between hand. But they could show enough for 40 minutes. Like, you think the Force made dents, the Reds made dents, and there'd be just enough that Joe Schmidt would be picking up on and going, oh, there's a few chinks here defensively. But I thought it was brilliant, the drama of the wet field.
What happened? Explain it to us.
Well, the field was a lot wetter than the Lions anticipated in Sydney, and they were looking around the clouds, and they have decided that there might have been a bit of skullduggery from the Waratahs and the groundsmen around watering the pitch pre-game.
Oh, come on.
And if they have done that, that's
they
home
can prepare
advantage.
Whatever pitch they want, can't they?
I mean, ask international cricketers they've got to go and play in India. They would love a bit of sprinkling going on, but it's pretty dry out there.
They can prepare whatever pitch.
Isn't it fascinating, though, that this is where the worlds have come to? Traditionally, you think Lions, you think Northern Hemisphere, big, wet, strong forward packs, and you think Wallabies playing on top of the ground and want it hard and fast, and yet now it's almost complete flip over.
So good.
But it's just adding to the storylines. We knew there was going to be some storylines, some scandals, some skullduggery as they lead up to that first test.
Well, the Farrells are making headlines all week, not just Father Andy, but for bringing his son in, who hasn't played international rugby in 2 years, who a month ago was a pundit on tour for the Lions. The Oracle called it. How many months ago? You said he will be on tour. He will be called up. But what sort of impact will he have? Will he actually make the 23?
23.
He'll make the 23. Covering 12.
10-12.
10-12 is what they're suggesting. He will be covering.
I know, although there's been some wonderful performances, I think Marcus Smith will be the 15. And I think Farrell will be on the bench, 10-12. You don't bring him in and create this hysteria that's because he's the coach's son if you don't see him being used. For me, we've talked about in the past, you need a goal kick to go over for your life. who's the man?
Yeah.
It's Owen Farrell. Bring him on the bench with 15 to go. I mean, Finn Russell's kicking brilliantly, but to have that insurance policy, banker, as we like to call them here on the Aftermatch, it goes without saying, Owen Farrell, he's there for a reason. Test match 23 every time.
Okay, just quickly though, if you're the rest of the 38 players in the touring party, are you stoked or are you seething? Does it depend what position you play?
It'll depend on what position you play.
Does it depend if you were the 23rd man?
Like, I know he's polarising. He's a legend.
Yeah.
He's a full-time...
So are you just stoked to have this
He's
guy?
a full-time British Lion.
Yeah.
And whenever you see people, and you can see it from afar, he's the sort of guy you want to play with.
Yeah.
Like, he's not going to back down from a challenge. And he's ice cold.
Just like you, Beav. Ice cool. That is the Aftermatch once again. Make sure you like and subscribe. We'll be back potentially in a couple of days' time. If you like the bonus episodes, let us know in the comments. That is the Aftermatch. We'll see you soon.